Hello, and welcome back to our product stage. For those of you who haven't joined us yet for some of the product demos we've done so far, welcome to the stage. My name is Kayla Schneider, and I run our enablement and solutioning teams here at Virtuous. I am joined by the lovely Ashley Keene. Ashley, you want to give a little intro?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Ashley Keene. I'm a solutions engineer here at Virtuous. Prior to Virtuous, I spent a lot of time in the nonprofit space, most of that in higher education, doing reporting and in data analytics. So you'll hear a lot of references to that time, but excited to show you guys the Virtuous platform today and how it can help increase your fundraising efforts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley. Well, today, this session, what are we talking about? How do we break down some of those silos within our teams? And I think it's really important to start at why are we kind of talking about this? It's because of our idea of responsive fundraising. And part of that idea of how do we become really good responsive fundraisers is we kind of crafted this, what we call our maturity model. And that is going to allow us to kind of see kind of steps of how to get to be responsive. And one of those steps is breaking down our silos. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through a little bit of what that maturity model looks like first, and then Ashley's going to walk us through the platform and show us what Virtuous has done to help us in that mission. And so I'm going to share my screen to get started, and then we will be able to, if I can find the right, there we go, maturity model. Don't want to share the wrong screen there. Okay, so let me share that, and we'll get in slideshow, and we'll get moving here. Okay, perfect. So when we think about the responsive maturity model, it really is that idea of we're going to look both how to be responsive externally with our supporters, but how do we also be responsive internally with our teams? How do we break down those silos? And so the maturity model kind of has 5 steps here. They don't have to go in order, kind of builds on each other, right? I need to kind of have this base to be able to kind of move up, but really want to make sure of what it looks like here. Our first step is having access to good data, healthy data. If you didn't watch the custom data demo yesterday, I would highly recommend going back and like watching that rerun. The team did a really great job of going over why it's so important to have good data and then access to reporting. Reporting is a huge deal. And so throughout some of these demos, we talked about some of our reporting tools, but tomorrow I'll actually be talking about our BI tool and what we've put into play here as well. As you can see, that next step is going to be our integrated teams. Again, why? How do we break down those silos? It's really important that our teams work together, know what we're all doing. So we have that holistic view of our supporter. How are they engaging? That holistic view of our supporter leads to our next step, which is how do we create segmentation and personas? How do we get to a place where we can actually see different segments in our database and understand that Kayla's a volunteer, but she also was part of a program 3 years ago, and she donates to our certain causes, like seeing us in one holistic idea, which allows us to then run those dynamic campaigns, having the ability to get there. And so when we look at that idea from the external perspective of what does it look like for our donors, what does that responsive journey look like? It's how do we take each individual supporter and allow them to go on their own journey. Our responsive fundraising model is we're going to listen to who our donors are, how they're going to engage with us, how they come to us, what is important to them, how they tick, right? We want to know what they care about from our mission specifically. We're going to take that information to connect with them personally at scale, which are these dynamic asks, right? We're talking to them individually on their timing, with their intent, with their communication preferences. We're going to then use that information of how we deepened our relationships to suggest the right ask at the right time. And then we're going to continuously learn what worked for them and what worked for us. And so we can send them on these dynamic asks as we kind of move forward. But all of this is predicated on the idea of really having the ability to have our responsive team experience is what we're going to talk about today. Making sure that we have that opportunity to be able to say, how do we make sure that our marketing team and our finance and ops team, as well as our fundraising development teams and our program teams, all are able to see our supporters and our engagement in one place, right? How can we make sure that all of this information really helps us talk to people in the ways that make sense for them? And so that's a really quick overview of what the maturity model is and also what our responsive fundraising ideology is. And so I want to kind of stop here. I'm going to stop my sharing, and Ashley's going to show us what it looks like to take that step, that integrated team opportunity, and say, how do we do this, right? How do we make that opportunity to take one system, one place, and not have 20,000 different places to look for the information we need for each supporter? So Ashley, go for it. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Kayla. So let's first talk about problems that data silos cause within an organization. Silos can make it really difficult to understand and be responsive to your donors' behavior. It's hard to have a holistic view of your donors when information is scattered, especially if it's scattered in disparate systems. Silos also make it really difficult to measure success. So if you're unsure about which campaigns worked well and which didn't, you won't know which efforts to replicate and which to pivot from in future campaigns. So with all of that in mind, let's take a look at how Virtuous can help you break down those data silos. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let me make sure I get the right window. There we go. Okay, perfect. So we'll start by looking at how Virtuous can help you bring data in cleanly and accurately on the front end. This is so critical when implementing a responsive fundraising program, when you personalize donor communication at scale. If you brought in incorrect data, that could lead to an embarrassing mistake with your donors. So because of this, Virtuous has strong matching criteria built in to catch these issues. So we're going to take a look at the gift and contact import tool as we look at how that data is going to come into Virtuous. So you can kind of think of the data, the gift and contact import tool as customs at the airport. This is where everything that's coming into Virtuous is coming. So online gifts that are made, form submissions, event registrations, all of those things coming in here. Also, any offline gifts. If I get checks in the mail, I'm going to process those in this area as well. I'm actually going to take you through one of these imports so we can take a look at what that looks like in Virtuous. But think about this as really an intentional pause for your data. So the data comes into Virtuous, it's doing all the duplicate detection, all of the matching, pausing so that a human can actually look at that information, make sure it looks accurate before it's put in the system. So let's take a look at what that looks like. This is an example of a gift bundle that came in to my system. What Virtuous is doing, again, doing all of that matching. We're matching based on 4 data points in Virtuous. So a really strong duplicate detector there. It's looking at name information, email address, phone number, and mailing address to try to find a match. And then it's bucketing those transactions for you in these 3 buckets at the bottom. So I'm actually going to start right to left. I know that's not traditional, but here we'll take a look at our ready for import bucket first. So first, these are those gifts that came in cleanly. These match to an existing donor. They didn't give us a new mailing address or email address or phone number. So these are ready to go. Virtuous has done all of the matching needed for me. They're good to go. The next bucket is going to be my update needed bucket. So here I have some transactions that have some new information. You know, they match to somebody that's already in our system, but they gave us a new data point. So if I look here at this first one, Albert and Christina here, looks like they gave us a new mailing address. So Virtuous is pointing that out to me and asking me what I want to do with that new information. I can add it, I can ignore it. Once I make that selection, they're going to move to that ready for import bucket as well. Lastly, I have match needed. This is going to be a donor that wasn't found. So Virtuous couldn't find a match and is prompting me to create that new record. So I can actually do that right from here. No need to leave this tool to do that. I can do it here and then keep moving. Once all of these decisions are made, everybody's in my ready for import bucket. I'm then going to be able to click that import button, and now everything is in the system. So that is how our data is coming in. One other quick thing I want to show you here is how we would do this if we had offline gifts. So those gifts that come in manually, you can actually start a new bundle right here and enter those gifts manually. You can also upload CSV files. So if you have gifts coming out of another system or event registrations, you can import those here as well. One other thing I want to point out here before we move on is taking a look at our data health tool. So this is here to catch any of those, check that data that's come into Virtuous and make sure that everything looks good. This is going to show you potential duplicate records. From here, from my duplicate screen, I can actually merge records together when I find a duplicate. We also have the option of ignoring a duplicate, a potential duplicate. So if I've got, two families living at the same address, or maybe I have somebody, a father-son that share an email address or something like that, I'm able to ignore any of those duplicates so that they don't keep being presented to me. We also check addresses here. So this is going to show me unvalidated addresses. From this screen, I'm also able to request an NCOA update through the data health tool. So right here within the platform. In addition, we show phone numbers here without correct formatting, and then email addresses that repeatedly bounce, really letting you keep that email address list up to date. All right, so now that we know that we can trust the data that's in Virtuous, let's take a look at how reporting can give us valuable insight into that data and power us to make data-driven decisions. So I'm going to start that conversation by taking a look at our highest level of reporting in Virtuous. That's going to be our dashboard reports. These are, again, high level, 10,000-foot view of your data that's really just showing you trends within your system. This first dashboard that we're looking at here, the CRM dashboard, is user specific. So mine is going to look different than Kayla's. It's going to look different than any other user at my organization. This is intended to let you build it out to show you the information that's most valuable to you in your role. Virtuous has about 30 best practice dashboard reports built into the platform for you to choose from. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So we've got those. They're categorized for me. We also have the ability to create our own custom widgets if needed. So maybe there's a report that I've created using our custom reporting tool that I really like. I can add that custom report to my dashboard as a widget. So I'm going to choose my donors by year report. That's kind of my go-to, one that I would have used at the university. Oh, can't spell when people are watching me. I would have used this every day. So now it's available on my dashboard going forward, and I'm able to see that custom data here on the dashboard. In addition to this CRM dashboard, we have a few others that are built into the platform. You've got a marketing dashboard, so your marketing and comms folks can have a high-level look at all of their data. So that would be your SMS that's sent through Virtuous, emails, also online gifts. We also have the responsive dashboard. The former data analytics person in me really loves this dashboard because I spent a lot of time in my prior CRM platform exporting data out so that I could manipulate it in Excel because this functionality didn't exist in the platform I was using. So, I built pivot tables and charts and graphs to show me the same information that Virtuous is presenting for me right out of the box. So it's giving me this high-level trend data, those mission-critical metrics. A lot of these are related to giving, as you can see here at the top. We've got that retention information, average gift size, total giving. If we scroll down, we also see engagement data related to our donor engagement. So Virtuous is really looking at generosity holistically. We're not just focused on financial generosity, but how are people engaging with you? Are they opening your emails? Are they coming to your events? Are they visiting your website? So presenting those data points to you here as well. And then lastly, here on the dashboard, we have the ability to create additional dashboards, and these can even be shared with other team members. So I worked with a group of major gift officers at the university. I would have created something very similar to this, an MGO dashboard, and then shared it with that team so that we could all be looking at the same information at the same time. A lot of times here, I'll see organizations create an event-related dashboard or maybe a campaign-specific dashboard, those types of things. All right, going back to the main dashboard there, next thing I want to show you here is our standard reports within Virtuous. So this is kind of that next level of complexity of data. These are pre-built for you. They're, canned reports based on best practices. You can access those standard reports right here from the dashboard screen. You can also access those from the navigation bar in the reports area. So either way there. I'm going to go right from here. Like I said, these are based on best practices. What you're really doing here is just setting parameters. So I'm telling Virtuous, the specific campaign I want to report on, or maybe the specific project I want to see my gifts by. Let's actually take a look at that one here. So here I'm choosing my project. I'm going to choose my annual fund there, and I can even set a time frame. I'm going to go back a little bit so that I can make sure I get some good data here. When I run that report, my data is going to drop into that pre-built report. Some of these reports are going to include just a data set like this one here. Some of these also include a graph option as well. Beyond the standard reports in Virtuous, the next option we have is going to be to use our query tool to do some reporting. Most of you probably know that query is traditionally used as a grouping tool. This allows me to pull the correct people for mailings, for emails, for all of my external solicitations. But this can also be a really powerful reporting tool. It can help me pull the right group or kind of filter down a group to then take into a custom report. This is also a great way to extract a lot of information from Virtuous. So if I need to, export all of that out into a CSV file, I can do that from here as well. When we create new queries in Virtuous, we're choosing which type of data that we're looking for. So you can see we've got a lot of options here. One really nice thing about query in Virtuous, it's a little different than a lot of CRM platforms, is that we have the ability to combine different query types. So for example, I could combine a contact query and a gift query. We call that a nested query. So just giving you more flexibility with how you can use this information. I'm going to choose a contact query here. We'll go to the query builder. From here, I can then just start typing in my criteria. So maybe I'm looking for people that are in the state of South Carolina. That's where I'm located. So I'm going to add that as a piece of criteria. If I add another line, I can then simply add a new piece of criteria. So maybe I also want to look, I want to look for the people in South Carolina that have given me more than, let's say, $10,000. You'll notice here, I also have an OR operator. So if I need to do some exclusionary criteria, I can do that here as well. So maybe I then want to consider people who are in, let's say, North Carolina, our friends to the north. And then I'm going to see whose life-to-date giving in North Carolina, life-to-date gift count is greater than 20. So a little bit of a different piece of criteria there. When I view my results, I'm going to see anybody that has matched either set of that criteria. So I see a mixture of South Carolina and North Carolina addresses. So that makes sense. From here, I can then download that CSV file outside of the system. I can search for fields very similarly to the way that I search for criteria fields in the query builder. So I can look for my address information, just simply type that in. Once I make my selections here in the query tool of the fields that I'd like to export, Virtuous is going to save that for me. So once I save this query, that selection is saved. So if this is one that I use a lot, I don't have to reselect those fields every time. Other things that we can do inside the query tool are things like global actions. So if I select some or maybe even all of the people within my query, from there, I could, maybe add them to my specific email list. Maybe I'm going to do add these people to a new gift officers organization group. So that's how we hold portfolios in Virtuous. So everybody in this area is going to go into that group. I could also, add a tag to the records, create a task, any number of things there. All right, so the next level of reporting I want to talk to you guys about is going to be our custom reporting tool in Virtuous. So we actually have two custom reporting options now in the platform. One of those being our built-in custom report builder. So this is going to allow us to easily create a custom report on the fly here with one data set. So let's say I'm choosing to do report on gifts now. I can choose as I go through this report builder, which fields I'd like to include. I can choose what I'd like to group my fields by on my graphing option here. I can also choose which fields I'd like to see in my data set. And then finally, I can filter that data. The result is going to be, a custom report. Maybe this one here, my campaign giving the last 3 years. I'm going to be able to see that graphing option and then my report results below. You'll notice I have that option to add this to my dashboard. So just like I showed you earlier when I added my donors by year to my dashboard, I can do that right from here. I can also download this information out of the system. Download just the chart, download just the data set. I can download as a PDF as well. Another nice option here is the ability to schedule those reports. So if this is a report that you run every single week or maybe every single month, instead of going into Virtuous and clicking the button every single time, we can just schedule that report so that it'll run at that interval and email you or another user a link to that report within the system. So nice option there. All right, I'm going to hop over into our Virtuous BI tool. So some of you may know that this is a recently launched tool here within Virtuous. This is going to give you the ability to combine different data tables and truly create custom reports in the system. The thing I want to show you here is that we have a lot of those reports already built into the platform. So if you wanted to just utilize some of those dashboards that we've built in here, you can do that. And you can even create, set parameters and create filters to really further refine this data. So for example, if I'm looking at my major giving performance, I might choose to report just on people in a certain portfolio. So I can add that filter here and my data will update with that filtered data. I'm also able to save these. So I can do a save as to save this particular iteration of this report without making any changes to the original report. This BI tool is also going to include a report builder that's going to allow you to create your own, truly custom report using our data tables within the system. So able you to really design that report the way that you need to see it. All right, well, I'm going to switch back over, switch gears a little bit here and talk about another way that Virtuous helps bring down data silos is with integrated tech. So here we're really allowing your teams to work with centralized data. Unlike a traditional CRM that requires a marketing platform to be layered on top of the CRM, in Virtuous, the marketing suite is built right in. So let's take a look at that. First, I want to show you our email tool. The email tool in Virtuous is going to be where you would create any emails that are going to be sent in mass, also any emails that are going to be created and sent through automation, which we'll take a look at in a few minutes. Here in the email tool, we can see open rates and click rates. We can also see how many total recipients have received this email. I can even dive a little bit further into this. I can take a look at all of my sent emails and view the specific recipients. I can see those open and click rates, bounce rates, unsubscribes. I can see here that Milton opened our email and clicked through it. But the nice thing is I can also see this from Milton's record. So that data is going to show in both places here. So we'll be able to see that here on his activity feed on the right-hand side. All right, so let's take a look at the email builder itself. You can kind of see what that looks like. When I open up the email builder, I'm going to be able to choose if I'd like to build an email using our visual builder. So that, WYSIWYG drag and drop editor, or I can build using HTML. When I'm creating that email, I can choose a specific email list so that, if I'm targeting communications to, related to events to a specific group of people or maybe solicitations. This is also a way that your donors or your supporters can choose to opt out based on preference instead of doing a global opt out when they hit that unsubscribe link. Maybe I still want to get your event emails, but I don't want to get your newsletter anymore. So I'm able to make that selection through that unsubscribe option. We can also do A/B split testing here within the email builder. So if you want to test 2 different versions of your email, you can choose a small subset or choose a percentage of your list to test against, choose a test duration, tell Virtuous if you want it to test based on open rate or click rate, and then move on. Virtuous is actually going to run all of this for you. This is not the experience of having to come back in and look at analytics to determine, which email performed better. Virtuous does all of that for you and then sends the better performing email to the remainder of the list. It then tracks which version was sent to each donor back onto the record. So if I wanted to do, like a retargeting campaign for the people that received the email that didn't perform as well, I could easily identify that group and do so. All right, in the builder itself, I do want to show you that merge tags within the system allow us to really customize emails within Virtuous. And this is one of the benefits of having marketing built right into the platform, is that we have access to all of this great information from the contact record. Maybe I'm going to personalize with name information. Maybe I want to pull in giving data, like their most recent gift or their year-to-date giving. I can also use all of our custom field data to personalize this email as well. My next option here within the email builder is to choose to target this email. I chose my general communication list. That was my starting place, but maybe this email should go to a subset of that list. Let's say it's, an event RSVP reminder. I'm going to exclude anybody who's already RSVP'd. Or maybe it is a solicitation. I'm going to exclude anybody who's given recently. So those types of options are available by including or excluding using queries. Next, I'm going to be able to choose when I want to send the email. I can send it immediately, or I can schedule that send. When you schedule an email in Virtuous, it's going to update that list closer to send time. So again, we don't have to run a list and send it over to a different platform, after I've already scheduled the email. Virtuous is then capturing that sent email back onto the contact record, so I can see who received what and when they opened it and click through it. All right, moving back to the marketing suite, the next thing I'll show you here are our marketing forms. These are embeddable forms that you can create using just drag and drop options to embed on your website. They're going to adopt the CSS look and style of your site, so they'll look like they belong there. But this is going to allow you to capture lots of different types of information from your donors. Of course, we've got giving forms to capture donations, pledge forms. Lead forms are going to let you, maybe capture email subscriptions or inquiry type information. Membership, event, and volunteer. So lots of options here. The great thing about these forms is these submissions are going to come in through that gift and contact import tool that we saw earlier. So, they're going to be checked with that same duplicate detector as they come in, so that, again, we're making sure that we're bringing clean data into the system. We also have a marketing tool called Letters on Demand. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we look at automation in a few minutes, but just want to mention here that this is a service that Virtuous offers. We work with a national mail house to print, stamp, and mail letters or postcards on your organization's behalf. You create those templates here, so you design exactly what that letter or postcard should say, what it looks like, and then that mail house takes care of the printing, stamping, and mailing for you. This is not for your bulk mailings. This is for those one-off pieces, those that are being sent based on donor timing and donor intent. So really intended to be used with that automation tool. Our letters can be up to 4 pages. Our postcards are going to be front and back. They can also, those letters can also include a reply device as well. We also have the ability to send SMS messages through Virtuous. These can be sent directly from the donor record, so a one-off message. We can also, in this area, create a mass text. We can also set up a template here to be used through automation as well. So we'll see that in just a few minutes as well. All right, so moving over to the contact record, we're going to see how the record is storing data for everyone on your organization's team. From the contact record, we're able to see, not just your basic biographical information, but a lot of custom data as well and other information that's useful for all of our teams within the organization. So looking at that custom data first, in Virtuous, we have multiple custom data options. So that includes our custom fields, which are going to hold data either at the household level or on the individual level. So data that we need to hold, queryable data, actionable data, I'm also able to merge these custom fields into email communication like we just saw in the marketing tool. We also have a multi-field custom data option through our custom collections. So this is a way to capture data that may not traditionally have a great place to land in most fundraising systems. So multi-field data that is really telling me a lot about this donor's relationship with us. All queryable data, so I can pull this back out after the fact. This example is a survey, so I could have used one of those lead forms to send out this survey to my donors, and then all of that information is coming right back onto the donor record here. Other examples of how organizations use this is for like program participation information, or maybe even store purchases. So really giving you that holistic view of the supporter and everything that they're doing with your organization. Another area that can really help your integrated teams is going to be that wealth data in Virtuous. So this is coming in from our native integration with donor search. So this, does not require me to go to another system to see the data. I can see it all right here in Virtuous. I can refresh it from here. I can drill into that data, see more information. We can query on all of these fields. So, your prospect research team knows, where to go to get the information. Your major gift officers, they can have a peek into that as well without having to have access to another tool. We also have visibility into relationships, so maintaining that information of who's connecting to who within my organization. Then on the right-hand side, we have a full activity feed that's showing a holistic view of this household or organization's different touch points. So again, if I'm a gift officer and I'm going to give Elizabeth a call, I know who most recently spoke to her, or what action she most recently took with us. Looks like she opened our email. I can even reference that, in my conversation. In addition to all of these great data points, we can even get a full picture of a supporter's relationship with us by viewing things like event data right from the record. So I can see not only the events that they were invited to, but those that they actually subsequently attended. I can also see volunteer information right from here. So I'm able to reference this if I speak to this donor. And then finally, if there's any grant data related to them, I would see that here as well. More likely to exist on a foundation or organization record, but able to see that right from the record itself. Virtuous also gives me full visibility into any tasks that have been completed and also any that are outstanding. I'm going to be able to see this directly from my dashboard, but I can also see that from the contact record. These can be created one at a time right from here. I can create these in bulk using queries, but we can also let automation workflows create these for us, really streamlining those processes even more. The contact record is also going to give your team visibility into segmentation and persona data. So tagging is a really great way to segment different supporter audiences and view that data at a glance in Virtuous. So I might segment based on lifetime giving, annual, maybe just an annual giving society, maybe mailing preferences, or even program interests. So I'm able to see all of that right here from the donor record. So now that we've taken a look at how this data is stored, let's take a look at automation in Virtuous to take all of that data that you've captured and utilize segmentation to really personalize your donor outreach. Automation really helps you base that outreach on the donor's timing, not the organization's preferred time frame, which is what we're trying to do here with the idea of responsive fundraising. Within automation, we have both internal and external automation steps. I think most people, when they think about automation, think about just the external pieces, which are, very important. This is how I connect with my donors via email, via SMS message, via those letters and postcards that I mentioned before. But internal automation is just as important. This is a great way to save your staff valuable time and also keep your database up to date. So letting Virtuous handle things for you, like updating adding and removing tags, creating tasks for your staff, maybe running that wealth data, all of those different activities. So we'll see that here when we take a look at an automation workflow. To get started with workflows in Virtuous, we have best practice templates built in. So I think you've probably seen a theme here that there's a lot of best practices built into the Virtuous platform. These are fully built out with the writing prompts, the queries, the steps you would need to be successful. But they really are just templates. You can use them exactly how they come out, or you can really edit them and just use them as a starting place. You can also create a workflow from scratch at any point as well. I'm going to mention a couple of these, and then we'll take a look at what the actual workflow builder looks like as well. I like to point out the birthday celebration workflow. This one kind of makes me laugh because when I was at the university, I used to do our birthday recognition of our alumni, and it was so cumbersome to do that I did it once a month. So I ran it usually on the first of the month, or maybe the first weekday of the month, which is a great experience if your birthday is the first week of the month, but not so great if your birthday is, let's say, the 31st, right? So here in Virtuous, we're automating that process, allowing that recognition of that birthday to happen on the day of the event without any additional burden on your staff. You could even have this separated out to where major donors get maybe that postcard through the mail, and everyone else gets, an email recognition of their birthday. So different options there. Also really love the donor lifecycle workflow. This is going to allow me to take somebody all the way, maybe from a non-donor, somebody that's just expressed interest in your organization, to a first-time donor, to hopefully at some point, maybe even a sustaining or recurring donor. So that whole full life cycle, that whole journey of the donor from the non-donor step to ultimately becoming a regular supporter. Couple others to point out are milestone workflows. We have life-to-date giving, year-to-date giving, and even volunteer milestones. So you can recognize your donors or your volunteers for their continued support of the organization. So that hyper-personal communication saying, hey, did you know that over time you have donated over $1,000 to our organization, or that you've hit 100 hours in volunteering? So recognizing people for those significant events. All right, I'm going to jump into our new donor welcome series. So we'll take a look at the builder itself and see the different components here. This is, I think, a great one to look at because it shows you that multi-channel capability that's available within our automations. And this one's just an important one because we know from giving statistics that donors that are engaged early on have a much higher retention rate. So this is going to help us streamline that process and hopefully retain some more of those donors. First thing to point out here is this builder is a drag and drop tool, so very easy to move things around, add new actions, delete those that you would like to remove. All of our automations are based on a query or filter here, so that's how Virtuous is determining who belongs in this workflow. Our workflows run overnight, so each night it's looking for new donors that meet this criteria. In this case, it's just looking for somebody who's made their first gift to the organization. I could get a lot more granular with this criteria and say, hey, those that have given their first gift and it was under $500 should get one set of communication steps. Those who gave over 500 should go a different direction. So that's kind of the level of detail I can get to in here. The first couple steps in this workflow you'll see are those internal steps. So things like adding tags. So I'm keeping my segmentation up to date, appending that wealth data. So my prospect research person doesn't have to try to find people to run wealth data information on. Then I've got my external steps: email, SMS, postcards, maybe a letter to close the loop on that series. We've also got a task being scheduled here. So there really is still a human element to this. I think automation, people often think like, well, gosh, I'm not going to have any engagement with my donor. Well, absolutely. What's happening here is Virtuous is reminding, creating this task for you and then reminding you about that task. So taking some of that work out of your hands, but of course you've still got to make the phone call to the donor. But of all these actions that are happening in this workflow, that's the only one that took any of my time. So with our workflows, we're not just reducing staff time here. We're also increasing that personalization and making immediate recognition of those donations or touch points with our donors. We also have engagement data here to show us, kind of give us a peek into how our automation is performing. Okay, so let's take a look at how Virtuous helps you plan and execute dynamic campaigns and easily track those results. One of the ways that we do that is through our campaign structure in Virtuous. Campaigns are really just a group of efforts to raise funds within Virtuous. We have 3 levels within our hierarchy in the system. So the first level is that campaign level. So I'm going to open up my annual campaign here. We'll dive into this one a little bit more. Then within that campaign, we have different communication methods. So this is just my different methods of outreach. Maybe it's direct mail, email, social media, peer-to-peer, different types of outreach we're doing. Then within that communication, I'm going to potentially have multiple segments. So because this is a direct mail, maybe I've created 4 different versions of this direct mailing, and I'm sending those based on, it looks like lifetime giving amount here. The really nice thing about this is this segmentation can be run right here inside of Virtuous. I don't have to just dump everybody out into Excel and then slice and dice from there to try to put people in the right category. I can simply define query criteria, attach it to the segment, and then Virtuous segments out my donors for me based on that query criteria and ensures that each person only lands in one of those groups. From here, I'm also able to add a cost per piece for all of my outreach here. So maybe my major donor mailing is costing me 50 cents per contact. When I add that cost in, Virtuous is going to calculate my total cost for me. And then as those gifts come in and are processed, and marked that they were a result of this particular segment, Virtuous is then updating that ROI for me automatically. All right, and then last but not least, I want to take you through another tool that can be really helpful for your executing your campaigns, and that's going to be our gift ask pipeline. This is a drag and drop board view of all of your gift asks and proposals within Virtuous. In this area, you can set goals, you can see a forecast, you can also update the status of these gift asks. So like I said, it's drag and drop. I'm able to move things around as that information changes. We can choose our own customized stages here. Yours might look very different from mine. I set mine up based on the way that our stages were broken out at the university. So I've got 5 stages here. For each of those stages, you can attach a probability to close to that stage. So that's how Virtuous is coming up with that forecasted number for you, determining, of this, all of those gifts and ready to solicit, we're expecting 50% of that to actually close. You can also override that probability for any individual gift ask. So, if I've met with Earl here and I know he's much more likely than 50% to give us this gift, I can override that for this particular gift ask. This is also going to allow us to add filters. So if we need to see maybe those gift asks that have been in their current status for, 60 days or more, let's say, and they need some type of, nudge or push, I can add that filter to see all of those gift asks that have been in that status for too long so that nothing's slipping through the cracks for me. Okay, so that's all I have to show you. I hope this has been a helpful overview of how Virtuous can help you break down the data silos in your organization and move toward a more responsive fundraising program. And I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions.
Perfect. We do have a question. It says, back to emails. Can we send emails from different email addresses than from our Virtuous login email?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you actually can choose as you create your email in the email marketing tool, what email address that should be coming from. So if you kind of see here on my email, let me open it here. I chose, different emails even for my A/B testing. So I might test, this version A is going to come directly from me. See if that leads to a higher open rate than my, maybe organization generic email address.
Yeah. I'll have to also call out that those email lists are really great for making sure people unsubscribe appropriately, right? I don't want any fundraising information, but I still want to get your program updates. I still want to get all that information, right? How do we have one tool that each team can use and use fully, without having to make sure, like, hey, Kayla unsubscribed. She didn't unsubscribe from everything, but she just doesn't want this certain type of information. I think it's really helpful to think about that. And then all that is then tracked back to that contact record, as I mentioned, right? Being able to see Kayla opens up program emails, but never opens up fundraising emails. You can query on that. You can see that information. Again, really allowing your teams to be able to have access to the data that they need all in one place there. Thank you so much, Ashley. It was really great to be able to see that. Would love to thank you guys for joining us as well. We do have another session later today in about 15 minutes on donor retention and what that looks like here in Virtuous. And then tomorrow, some deep dives into our products as well. So would love to have you back on our stage. If not our stage, any of the stages here at RNS, as there are so many incredible speakers and topics that we're going over. So I hope y'all enjoy the rest of RNS and have a good day. And if I see you on our next session, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Thanks so much. Bye, y'all.
Thanks.